I'm Rachel from Winnaid Breed Wrap New. I'm going to show you how to make Dutch butter cake. For this Dutch butter cake, we're going to need 250 grams of self-raising flour, 250 grams of caster sugar, 250 grams of butter, a pinch of salt, half a lemon zest, 1 teaspoon of vanilla essence and 1 egg. You will also need a cake pan, or if you don't have a cake pan, I'm using a springform pan. As you can see, I've greased it and lined it with greaseproof paper. Preheat my oven to 175 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So for the Dutch butter cake, we're going to start by adding our butter, our caster sugar, a pinch of salt, a teaspoon of vanilla essence, and the rest of half a lemon. We have all our ingredients in the bowl. We're going to just mix it with our mixer. This might take a few minutes. We're going to make sure that everything is all mixed together. So after we've mixed the butter and the sugar together, we need to add our egg. So we need to whisk our egg. But we only need to add about 2/3 of the egg to the mix. So we whisked our egg. We're going to add 2/3. We need to keep a little bit back for glazing our cake, and we're going to add our flour. So we've added our egg, we can sieve our flour into our mix. So now we want to make our dough. So we're going to mix everything together until we get a nice soft dough. The dough is all coming together. What we need to do is put it onto a floured surface, and we're going to knead it just a little bit. We don't want to over knead it, just a few seconds, just to make sure that everything is mixed together. And it's not too sticky. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it in some cling film and pop it in the fridge to cool. So now we're just going to put the dough, flatten it out on some cling film and just pop it in the fridge for about 30 minutes to cool before we bake it. Okay, so I've taken our dough out of the fridge. I'm just going to put it into the cake pan. Now we need to just even the dough out in the pan just by pushing it out to all the corners. You want to try and get it as level as you can. Okay. Push it the whole way out. What you can do is get some greaseproof paper and just smooth it out. So when we smooth out the cake, we're just going to brush it with some of our egg that's left over. This will give it a nice brown top. Then what we'll do is we take the back of a fork and just run it along the cake to make a bit of a pattern. Before we pop it in the oven. Again, you might need an adult to help you with this. Always be careful of hot ovens. And we'll come back in about 20 to 25 minutes. So now that the cooking time is up, we can remove our cake from the oven. we're going to do is leave it to cool completely in the tin. So now that our cake is completely cool, I've removed it from the tin, and to serve, you can cut it into small triangles and serve with some lovely whipped cream. Hi, I'm Rachel from Bridnave Breed New. Today I'm going to show you how to make some Dutch cookies called pepernoten. These cookies are particularly popular around Sinterklaas, a Dutch holiday. For this simple recipe, you will need 1 cup of self-raising flour, a half a cup of brown sugar, a half a cup of white sugar, 1 tablespoon of milk, 50 grams of butter, 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, 1 teaspoon of ground cloves, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of ground ginger. You will also need greased baking trays, a mixing bowl, a mixer with dough hooks. I'm going to start by preheating my oven to 165 degrees Celsius or 325 degrees Fahrenheit. It's really important that we wash our hands before we do any baking. Creaming our sugar and butter together. So we're going to cream both the brown sugar and the white sugar with the butter. You want to make sure that the butter is well mixed into the sugar and as you can see it's starting to come together. If you don't have a mixture with dough hooks, you can also use a wooden spoon. Now it's time to add the spices. So I'm adding 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, 1 teaspoon of ground cloves, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of ground ginger. So if you don't have those spices, what you can use instead is mixed allspice. You will need 2 to 3 teaspoons of this instead. So we're just going to give it a quick mix through to mix all the spices in before we add the flour and the milk. So what you want to do is you want to sieve your flour into your mix. This just gets rid of any lumps in your flour. So the flour sieved in. Just going to mix this around a bit before we add the milk. And when we add the milk, we're going to make a soft dough. So it's 1 tablespoon of milk, until it starts to come together as a dough. You might need to add a tiny bit more milk, but just be careful you don't add too much that your dough gets too watery. When it starts to come together, you can start to use your hands to mix it. And then we're going to shape it into little marble-sized balls for our cookies. Now the fun part. This is where we get our hands dirty. So I'm just mixing it into the dough. As you can see, it's starting to stick together nicely. And we're just going to get 1 little ball of dough. And from that, we're going to make our cookies. You can see it there. It's not too sticky and it's not too dry. So what we want to do is make tiny little marble-sized balls. And when we've got those made, we're going to put them on our baking tray. Just make sure you space them apart because they do rise a little bit and spread out. So with this mix, you should get around 40 little pepernotens. So I'll just do this and I'm going to get them in the oven. So that's all our biscuits made. It doesn't matter if they're not all the same shape or size. That's the great thing about these. They're all different. We're going to pop them in the oven and they're going to cook for about 15 to 20 minutes. You might need to get an adult to help you with this part, and always be careful with a hot oven. We'll come back in 15 minutes. Okay, so our 15 minutes is up and I've just checked our cookies and they're ready to come out. So very carefully, maybe get an adult to do this. We're going to take them out of the oven and let them cool. They will be a little bit soft at this stage, but they will harden up as they cool down. They smell delicious. When you've taken your paper Newton out of the oven, just pop them on a wire tray to cool and then harden up. And here we have it, the finished product. If you've made them, I'd love to see some of your photos.